The project that we're doing with the IGBC is the quantification of the whole life carbon in the Irish built environment, both for the operation and construction of buildings. So that's a quantification of the greenhouse gas emissions related to the built environment. And what we found is that the Irish built environment is responsible for 23 megatons of CO2 equivalent each year. And that's divided 2/3, 1/3 between the operation and the construction of the built environment. So about 14 megatons for the operation, 9 megatons for the construction of the built environment annually. So there's a considerable development planned in Ireland between now and 2030. So we will see, or we expect to see significant increases in operational and embodied carbon as a result. We do plan considerable retrofit, which is required. We have quite an inefficient housing stock, and we can shave quite a lot off our annual greenhouse gas emission bill by cutting or improving the performance of the housing stock. So to reach a minus 51% reduction in operational energy will be quite a challenge. It will require lots of improvement on lots of fronts, particularly, as I say, the retrofit of housing, the retrofit of commercial buildings as well. The decarbonisation of the electricity grid is certainly necessary, and then as we move more buildings onto an electrical supply, we can reduce the amount of buildings reliant on fossil fuels, particularly for space heating. But also we'll need to see considerable improvements from occupants and occupant behaviours in homes. If we see considerable amounts of comfort take back, we will not in a real sense reduce our greenhouse gas emissions related to the operation of buildings. With regard to the construction of buildings or the embodied carbon, we really have to think about how much we really need to build between now and 2030, because it is possible that what we build will swamp gains in operational emission improvements. And the National Development Plan outlines considerable amount of construction between now and 2030. We really need to look again at the amount of infrastructure projects that are really necessary. We need to look at the amount of housing that needs to be built. Maybe there are alternatives. Maybe we can make use of the large amount of vacant properties that we have around the country and slice significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions off the bill. I mean, we estimate that if we use use about a quarter or 25% of new homes were replaced by vacant properties every year, we could cut about a megaton of emissions from the annual construction bill for new housing between now and 2030, which is 33,000 homes a year. So there's lots of potential. We need to reduce the carbon intensity of construction. The RIAI called for a 40% reduction in embodied carbon in their challenge to 2030. We need to achieve that at minimum. We need to look at new materials. We need to look at how we construct buildings. We need to look at the materials that we import, particularly metals that are of high embodied carbon, and really evaluate are there alternatives. And there are alternatives. You know, the timber industry is growing in this country. It needs to get more traction. We need to reduce the stringency of our regulations to allow timber have greater traction in the construction industry. We need to innovate in concrete. We have some very innovative players in the market here, and there is real potential to reduce the embodied carbon related to concrete quite considerably by looking at supplementary cementitious materials or low clinker, low carbon content concrete.